You're listening to SEEK Bytes, the podcast by engineers for engineers. On this episode, we have a roundtable with a bunch of us talking about the latest and greatest things you can do with AI. We talk about how to get the most from your AI coding companion, such as plans for your kickoffs, skills and the dangers of them, a new browser mode for debugging problems in your browser, and Maltbook, the Facebook for bots.
So I've been using Cursor and IntelliJ in my kind of day-to-day. I did try Claude Code for a little bit there. Excuse me, voice don't.
Wow, is that what Claude made you feel?
Exactly, it did.
It's ruined you.
So the issue I had with Claude was it felt really slow. It was only via terminal, but then there was an integration with IntelliJ, which allowed the IDE to kind of pick it up and do visual diffs, which I really liked. But what I found with Cursor that I like is just the agent mode was better. It was a better user experience. So I'd be like, hey, I want you to go and build this thing, and I will have whitelisted a bunch of stuff, or allow listed rather, where I'd be like, look, if you want to run test, go and run test. If you want to like CD to somewhere, CD to wherever you want. I don't care. Like, you don't have permission to do anything. And it would just go and do stuff. And occasionally it would be like, oh, I'm trying to like npm exec, a script. And I'd be like, yes, that's allow listed now. You can do that. Whereas I found with Claude, every 2 seconds it would stop to prompt and to be like, hey, you happy with this diff? And it's like, I asked you to do quite a lot of things and you're stopping every however many seconds to prompt me. But also just the thinking time. I felt it thought for a lot longer. I will say the code output seemed a bit better, but at the end of the day, I'm not really using any of the AIs to produce good code.
Yeah.
I'm just getting
I'm not writing good code anyway. So.
Well, that's it, right? No, I'm just getting them to do grunt work, basically. And I found that the being more targeted with the grunt work is a lot easier as well, because when I try to do a really big like refactor or chunky thing, it's like actually it's too much context for you to try and consume, and then the context pollution goes nuts. Whereas if I'm very targeted, I'm like, I want you to group by X, like change the parent in this kind of data hierarchy. And it's like, okay, it goes and writes a script to do that. I'm like, great, perfect. I'm like, the script may be garbage, but the output's what I care about. So I do that Cursor in one window, and then I just go to IntelliJ, my happy place, in the other window, and keep coding along. And that way it's like, I'm not just sitting there being like, I will just wait for the AI to work. I'll be like, no, you do this. I'm going to go and do this. And sometimes it's in the same project and repo, and sometimes it'll be like, here's one on like, a GraphQL API, and then here's a backend API. So I'm kind of doing two things at once.
You're like dual wielding IDEs.
That's
crazy.
That's it.
I've been wanting to try Claude Code. I don't have a license for it yet. I've just got Cursor.
Yeah.
But I've wanted to try Claude only. It is just the terminal, but like a bunch of them, some of my tools that I use like integrate with the terminal-based thing. Like my Git client can use it. And so, like that's why I would like to use it, just because it can integrate there. I don't know how often I would actually like type prompts in the terminal itself. I do, like you. I kind of prefer the agent mode of Cursor.
There were commands that you could only get in the CLI.
Really?
That was one reason for using the Claude CLI.
There were specific commands that you could.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was not one of the people using it. I just remember Elliott, one of the guys in my team, kept.
They can't believe
not the Elliott that's sitting here.
Elliott.
Okay.
I can't believe it's not Elliott. Yeah, he was just saying that like he can't stop using Claude. Well, he had to eventually stop using Claude, I think, because IDE reasons or whatever. But kept saying that it's frustrating that the IDEs, the full AI, I call them AIDEs. The AIDEs don't have all the functionality that the CLI does.
That's a really interesting one. So both what Will was saying and what you were saying, Seamus, because there's a lot of just stuff I just do in the terminal day to day. Now I don't write Vim. Like I'm more than happy to jump into the text editor in the terminal, but I found the Cursor IDE was better for the agent mode. But what I've recently tried is trying to stay in just IntelliJ and using Cursor in the terminal. So like spinning it up and being like, I'm going to start an agent here and I'm going to ask the agent to do something and then just keep coding the way I'm coding to try and see how that goes. But I think the visual interface in Cursor with the agent mode is really good. And I find it really useful to see kind of the history and what it's done. And it's just
talking about the visualization. I've started using, almost religiously started using plan mode. I don't know how recently plan mode came out as a feature. It might have only been a month and a half ago. Don't quote me on that. But I remember seeing something about Cursor introducing. Oh no, that's right. It was last month they introduced Composer. They introduced their new agent. Anyway, so plan mode is an option that you have, at least in Cursor. I don't know about other AIDEs because I don't use any. But when I run plan mode, a couple of interesting observations. One is because it's building a plan, it's producing a .md file that actually like kind of has all the instructions for what it is that you want to achieve. That includes visualizations of what the code structure looks like now, what it'll look like after the refactor, as including like schemas and type step changes and things like that. So you can kind of see how the code's going to evolve as it walks through those different steps. You can even go as far as changing your model between plan mode and agent mode, because some models will perform better at planning and some models will perform better at the agent work. But really what's interesting is in agent mode, at least in Cursor, agent mode seems to want to desperately try to reduce token consumption, which means that it will explore less of the code base when you're trying to solve some of these big, because you're talking about doing grunt work, right? If you're in agent mode, I think it will, at least at the moment, it always struggles to do complex tasks where you're relying on it to find the context. If you already have all the context and you know what files need to change and have a good plan in your head and you just need it to do the grunt work, I would just skip plan mode and go straight into agent mode. But you have to give it the files. You have to tell it, these are the files.
Yeah.
This is what I want you to
absolutely.
do. This is what the output looks like. But a lot of the time, it's like I know what the problem is. I know how it should be in terms of like I know at a high level this is what the logic needs to do. Maybe I don't have a strong opinion about order of operations or efficiency or anything like that. But if I put it in plan mode and I give it a clear problem and explain what we're trying to solve, I found that it's pretty good. Even if I didn't go any further and I wrote the code myself, it's really good at giving me a plan that I can then go and action myself.
And so you're just going in and being like, write a plan on how to fix this. Is that essentially just what you're doing?
Well, the prompt that so yesterday, for example, I shared this with the team and I started off with a relatively simple prompt. I didn't prompt engineer. Like I didn't really craft every single piece. I didn't do any of the like, the role assignments and stuff like that, where you use like keywords and you use specific nomenclature, specific language to sort of like force the agent to behave in a certain way. Like don't use negatives, because if you say, hey, don't do this, you're adding the context to it. Now it's aware of the thing it shouldn't do. Whereas if you just never said it at all, like I'm not prompt engineering to that level, right?
Yeah, you need like a literary master's degree to be able to figure out how to engineer these prompts.
And the solution is you say, hey, I want to run this prompt. Can you give me a prompt to give you?
Yeah.
And then it spits out something. You're like, yeah, that's what I want.
Why couldn't it just do it in the first place, right? Yeah.
It works surprisingly well though. Like when you were talking about building the plan, if you build that plan in that MD file and then you start a new thing in agent mode and you say, cool, here is your high level plan. Don't go exploring the code base. Just look at this and go to the next action item. Do that and then tick it off once it's done. And it's like,
it'll update the plan and you can see the
this.
checklist getting marked off as you go as well. Yeah.
And you were saying you didn't have to write a full plan like that.
Yeah. So like it did all the planning for me, right? My initial prompt was basically, we have this logic that does suppression. We suppress certain fields that we don't want to leak out to our consumers, right? Because of our revenue model or whatever else. And so I know at a high level what is a sensible step-by-step. Like we should do this kind of suppression. We should suppress resumes. We should suppress contact details. We should suppress this. And we should do it in this order. And then there's like bugs and things like that I've identified in the logic. So I'm kind of saying, this is the business rules we have. There are some bugs in the existing logic. And here are the files that the logic exists in. And what I've identified is that it's fragmented and we have two different approaches to solving the same problem that should really be one entry point that can solve for all use cases. Use generics, use elegant abstractions. And that's what I found is when you start coercing it to be like thinking the way that you think, it's able to produce much higher level code, but it has to be in plan mode. I just can't get the same results anytime I try to use agent mode. Like I said, because in plan mode, it's going to use way more context. It's going to use way more tokens. I can put it on a more expensive model just for that initial upfront thinking, and then I can put it into agent mode, cut the model back down and work through it. But the thing I found really advantageous is on each step, it's giving me committable, tested code that I can put a PR up for. It's not giving me like step 1, you can't commit this. Step 2, you can't commit this. Step 3, you might be able to commit this. Every single step is fully tested, fully working, fully functional. Even if it puts placeholder logic in just to be like, this is where it's going to go in the next step, everything works. It's all good
and
to go.
that actually right there is just a good engineering principle, which is you don't have to build it all in one commit or one PR. Like, you're going to reach out to a new library to get some business logic done that another team's working on. It's like, we'll call a stub, like create a function that's going to wrap that function, or that you'll replace with the real integration, and just return the mock data you expect for now. And then it's like, cool, then you can write your bit of logic, and you've got tests to say, look, when external function gives me, feature flag on, blah, feature flag off, and then it's like, cool, that's done. That's that discrete piece of work delivered. And then you have a smaller discrete piece of work that's replace it with real integration, and then you've already got the test in place to validate that it works. So that right there is just good engineering, rather than be like, oh, well, we can't start the whole work until all the stuff's ready, and then we've got to do it all in one big go. And it's like, no. Do small discrete pieces that you can deliver, and then ship that, even if it's not, live to real traffic. It's like, it's there. It's much better.
What's really interesting, or what I found really interesting, is I went through this exercise without using AI, like basically at all. I realized there was a problem. I could see the smells in the code. And so I spent half a day understanding all the logic, because I'd never encountered the logic before. So I was like, okay, why do we do this? What is it actually supposed to be doing? Got my own opinions, talked to product and stuff like that. And I walked through that process, and I got to a point where I'm like, oh my God, there's just way too many threads. I could not keep all the context in my head as to how many things I had to change to even get to a point that I could break it down. So
you were running out of tokens, I think.
Literally,
context pollution.
Yeah, especially as someone with ADHD, like I experience this more than most people do. Is I just have less working memory than most people do, and I could not have gotten to a point, like I had to write it down basically. Like there's no way that I think most engineers would have been able to do this refactor without writing something down so they can visualize what the hell's going on. There's just too many moving parts, too many generics, too many bits and pieces hanging in together, too many layers of the code that you have to navigate in and out of. And like I said, if I was never to go any further though, I would recommend people use the plan mode, because it's the same thing we should be doing anyways, coming up with a clear plan. And actually, I just thought of something just then. We've been trying to get our team to do kickoffs, and I found this in every team I've been in for the last 5 or 6 years, trying to get people to do short little kickoffs before they start cards, because that's an opportunity for all the seniors to say like, hey, I don't think that's the right approach. We should just be getting our engineers to use the plan mode and say like, hey, come up with 2 or 3 plans, think about what you think is the best, and then present that to the team before we kick off the work.
I've been talking to one of our principal staff engineers here at SEEK, and we were talking about how, in his opinion, we do reviews wrong. It was basically not that code reviews don't have a purpose. It's that if you're reviewing the code and that's the first time you're reviewing the piece of work, it's way too late in the cycle. Whereas if you do a kickoff, it's like you're reviewing the work when the cost is insanely low, as opposed to 5 days in and 10,000 lines of code later. And then, you can go and look at the code and you'll be like, yes, that is code that looks valid, that looks like it achieves your outcome. And then it goes to production and causes an incident, which was happened in a kind of sister team recently. What was interesting is that if you looked at the ticket and if you looked at the pull request, you'd be like, yes, this achieves that goal. And if you just looked at it in isolation, you were like, yep, seems fine. What's the problem with this? But when you kind of looked at like the files being changed, it was like inside a use case that was now like doing some kind of like user auth validation. A use case, like following clean architecture, it's like that shouldn't know or care about validating who the user is. That's like a kind of like route level entry point kind of thing. And as I was looking at this, I was like, if we do this here and this gets reused for like server to server calls, that's just going to fall over because there's no user. It's a server to server call. And so, this had already gone out the door and stuff. So I wasn't being magic and catching it. I was just kind of analyzing after the fact. But had there been a kickoff with a plan like that, you would have been like, does this cover all of our user groups or our user types or the calls to this service, etc.? And maybe it wouldn't have been caught anyway. Like there's no way to know. But I think the concept of being like, use plan mode to plan your kickoff, I think is a really good way of writing it down, because I often struggle to get my working memory down for other engineers to consume. An initiative I'm kind of leading at the moment where it's like, it's all in my head. I know all the moving pieces. I know what system needs to update where, what consumer needs this and this. And I like tried to dump it all down in a Confluence doc. And it's just, it's like 50 pages
Feels
long.
like wasted effort, right?
Yeah, like nobody can read this. And I'm like, it's useful for me because I'm like, I know I've written it down and I can find it. Let's just go to like the architecture diagram. Like, well, if we draw a box around this, that's like milestone 1 and this is milestone 2 and 3. And then I was like, oh man, that's so much easier to consume. We were just like, hey, what do you think when you see this diagram? And they were like, well, I guess you're going to touch that system and that other system and that system. And I was like, damn, the diagram works. We didn't have to tell them anything. They figured it out.
Yeah, but that's the thing with like all of these diagrams now, right? Like you are less likely to look at them if you're like using AI for the majority of your work. And so with that, would you think like moving forward, you would have to bake some context into your repos about like who your consumers are? There's always consumers that you all like tend to forget about, right? Like you have massive APIs to basically maintain, and there's always that one consumer that doesn't really bother you all that much, and so you don't really think about them all that much either. And so moving forward, would you think like we start putting these bits of information about like who is our consumer, what would they need, and like what things to consider?
I have one quick thing to add to that. I know Elliott's probably got a lot to comment on that one. Using AI to analyze, and I might have actually stolen your thunder right now, using AI to analyze your request data historically, rather than like who are our consumers and what do they need, that's not really relevant. What's relevant is what do you have coming in and what do you have going out. That's like, I used to be very like, I want to know who all my consumers are so I can talk to them when I'm changing stuff. But in reality, it's like, what are all the different sets of data that our API takes in so that we can accommodate for those shapes?
That's not the direction I was going in, but that's totally an awesome use, and I've done that before.
What do you mean by that, by having AI examine that data?
Because I'm really bad at it. I think people are really bad at it. I'm definitely really bad at analyzing data, like looking at large sets of data and finding patterns, right? So like if let's say we've got like 6 months or 3 months of logs of all of our input requests, then we can just throw that into a model and say, hey, give me a schema that represents all of the different variations of requests that we can have. And then you'll know like which of your fields are dead, not being used, or which ones are being, again, it's like if you only have 6 months of data, maybe the last time it was used was 8 months ago. Like it's not a perfect system, but we often find ourselves in a situation where we don't know who all of our consumers are, and we have to just manually or codify some method for surfacing which parts of our request can be changed or are no longer used and that kind of stuff, or like post out a message to teams and say, hey, we want to sunset these fields or migrate these fields away. If we use AI, we can just throw like, hey, here's my Datadog logs. Look at our logs. What patterns can you see?
Mm-hmm.
Does our schema actually reflect the real world that our data is?
It's a really, really good idea. And I think you highlighted a few things about that. Sometimes you'll get a consumer that's once every 6 months or once every year. Like it's a yearly financial report. It doesn't matter if it falls over or if it's slow because it's once a year. But if you've got consumers hitting you every day, so it's a really, really good way to do it. The direction I was going to go in though, in response to Arnav's question, how do you codify the business requirements into the agents? I recently went to Melb.js, and there was a really interesting talk there from a bloke who made this thing called Skilled. So skill with a D on the end, right? And basically you run this package and it will create a bunch of skills for Cursor or for Claude or for whatever agent you set up in the repo.
What are skills for anyone who doesn't know what that is?
So a skill file is kind of like one of the newer formats they're trying to have as a consistent way. So first there was kind of like Cursor rules as a file, and then there's skills, which is kind of like, here's a bit of info about a thing. And so it's just trying to make a consistent format for different agents to be able to consume to like get information, and whether that's like new features or deprecated fields, etc.
Like your starting context?
Yeah, pretty much. So it's kind of like underlying context that is either sent with every request, or at least the agent has access to it to be able to read over it. There was a really good example the bloke who did this gave, which was he ran a command to just like replace the default value on a field in a brand new Vue app, right? And it used deprecated logic. And he was like, but the model was trained, he went and looked and he's like, no, this model was trained up to like 2025 April. And it's like this, change was like August 2024. And he's like, so it's past that date. It should know that that's now deprecated. And, he like dug into the source data and the stuff that had been loaded into the model to be like, well, there's like 24,000 references to the old one and only like 200 to the new one. And it's like, so the weighting there is going to be wrong. And then what he did was really interesting. So he built this skilled kind of NPM package. And what it does is it pulls down the entire like README, the documentation, the issues, the release notes for, you can kind of configure what you want. And it creates skills for them. So you can do that for any NPM package. And so for Vue, then it was like, oh, cool, here's the release notes. And now that is in the context saying this field is now deprecated. You should use this alternative. So then when he did it again on a fresh repo, it used the new up-to-date field. So if you had information in your README about like, these are the consumers that we know of and that we support, and you're like, well, it needs to be there. It's like, well, in the kind of skills thing or the cursor rules for that particular repo, it's like, well, this is going to get sent with every request. So it will be there in the context. And if it's using the skills format, which, isn't perfect, but it's trying to have a consistent way to do it. But it was really, really interesting. And I think that could be a good approach, because then you can be like, look, inside my cursor rules or my this rules or whatever, you're like, well, here are the use cases we know of. Like, we're going to get these type of requests. We're going to, get traffic from XYZ consumers. So
we should give a public service announcement. We should say like, anytime your agent is recommending things to you, you should do due diligence to make sure that thing is actually safe. There's a whole new term, it's called AI poisoning. I've mentioned this before in one of our episodes. It's basically people can manufacture search engine optimization. They can manufacture stars on NPM packages, and then the LLM will think that you've got a totally fine, totally safe thing that can recommend. And this is true for skills as well. The Primogen, who he's just a software engineer that I watch a lot, did a video on this just recently about LLM skills, and we should be careful about just installing them randomly. But I use them every day. The last time I wrote a PR, I can't remember. Just use agents. You guys still writing PRs?
All the time.
No.
That's the only way I write code, but I'm old school.
Yeah.
I'm like, because I get my joy from writing the code. That's what makes me happy inside. And don't get me wrong, delivering with AI and still building a thing still makes me happy. But I'm like, if I find a mess of a file and I refactor it, and I'm like, yes.
No, the
you're
PR.
talking about the
PR.
description.
The PR itself.
The description and stuff, right?
Nah, I don't even add GIFs anymore. My AI adds GIFs to my PRs now.
GIFs?
Yeah, because our PR template has a spot for GIFs. So the AI is like, well, I think this is the right GIF for
Okay,
this.
well, you're going to have to do a jag on that to show me your skills.
It's a SEEK skill /SEEK-PR.
Yeah.
You have to install the AI toolkit.
I did that recently, actually. Yeah. I installed it on the profile level, not on the individual repo level. So I was like, it's kind of set and forget. It added a bunch of those commands, so I could then just in cursor be like, PR command. I just haven't been using it because I'd forgotten about it. So
I was going to say, like,
reminder.
what are some skills, if anyone else is using skills, what are some skills you're using? The big ones for me are auto-generating PRs. So like I don't have to write my description, explain what files have changed or why. It's really good. It's really, really good at writing PRs. The other one is code review. I can pull someone's branch down and then I can run a code review and it will review their code. But more importantly, I can have it review my own code before I do a PR. And it'll surface, like it has often surfaced little logical bugs or little logical inaccuracies that I didn't detect when I was writing my code. I'm like, oh, that's really
when
good.
it's reviewing your PR locally, because I've used like GitHub Copilot's one, and I really like the ability to be like, I'm just going to the website and I can click review, which is nice, but you need a license for that. It's not like per organization, which kind of irks me, but that's neither here nor there. So when you're doing this locally, what does it produce? Is it just an MD file with the changes?
Yep. Yeah. It produces an MD file. You're talking about the PR or the review?
The review.
It's the same way that you would describe a review to me. Like, this code is doing this. It appears to be doing X and Y. I'm not certain about that. You might need to verify that, blah, 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 blah. So it's telling you what it thinks seems odd about the change. But I'm never telling it what the change is. I'm just literally open branch /seek-review. And then it just reviews the change and goes, this is what I found.
Have they gotten better with the PR? Because sometimes I just feel like they generate so much info that like it is great that it could figure it out and write it all out. But then as someone reading that description, sometimes it can feel like a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's just said, it's like, this is where all the changes are, as opposed to, I don't know, if I was to say, it's like, this is my main thing. You'll see the files.
I would just like list out like the brief of what has changed and like what we're trying to achieve. But then this just blurts out like a huge blob of text. And I'm like, I'm not reading that. I'm just looking at
Yes, that's the problem, right? With some of these things, it blurts out too much stuff and you go, I'm not reading that. Or you go, I'll get another LLM to summarize for me.
Here's what I find really funny about that. We said just earlier in this podcast about people not doing reviews right. And in our team, we're talking about needing to be better at reviews and be more thorough with reviews. And we're essentially, because I'm the opposite. The way that the AI writes PRs is actually how I write PRs myself. I'll give you the file names and the high level why this file changed. And if you're saying that you don't want to do the easier job of reading my PR description, which explains at a high level all the changes are, you'd rather do the harder job of figuring that out by reading all of my code.
Yes, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but
not necessarily. It's just that sometimes it's writing too much. Like I can say the same thing in less words and less
I haven't come across that. I know that LLMs have a tendency to just waffle, and just bloat things and be like, this nothing change is such a big deal. I think I rarely have to sanitize the PR. I rarely have to remove those things. I'm sure that I'll encounter it eventually, but my experience so far has been 9 times out of 10, probably 19 out of 20. It's been very close to what I would have written anyway, which is just a high-level summary of why the change exists, and then not file by file, key files. Like these specific 5 out of the 25, 30 files that have changed, these specific 5 files contain the main business logic. And that's what I've found it produce. I don't know if it's the model that I'm choosing or whatever, but it tends to give me just the most critical, important change. And it's basically, there's no need for me to write a PR because it's the same way that I would write a PR. Maybe people feel the same way about the PRs that I write, but I think it's worse when I come to a PR and it's just the same thing that's in the card.
Yeah,
and then it's
I definitely hate that.
Why did this file change? So I tend to pull down branches and look through other people's code myself.
Same.
So that I can actually see how the code feels.
I guess that's different as well, because if you've got a card that can help you get a lot of that context of why it is happening, sometimes, at least for our team, we raise so many small PRs, there's no card or anything. There's certainly nothing, sometimes it's just a small little change. Getting the AI will say, this is the change, this is what's changed. But sometimes it'll miss out on why that change happened, because it has no context. We haven't given it that. So maybe that's my experience.
Maybe because I'm generating maybe because I've gone end to end. So I've done a plan mode, I've done an agent mode, and then I'm going into PR mode. So it's had the conversation with me. That's actually a really good point. It might be that because it has all the context of the entire flow from starting the work to finishing the work, it has already got all the context over why I'm making these changes.
I mean, that would probably make sense because if you look at the plan, right, the high level plan is we're re-architecting to solve for bugs and other things. And then you said we're going to hit these key bits and what phase you're in. It's okay, so in phase 2 of this refactor, this is the point of this. So it's kind of summarizing that.
Yeah, it just tries to sometimes even if it's a mapper change where you're just introducing a new field and populating the data, it would try to over glorify it and be like, hey, is this your performance review? I'm just going to blurt out a lot of things here to make it look like you've made this genius change when it's just a mapper.
It's funny that you say that. It reminded me the other day, as a joke, I would never do this in the real world. As a joke, I went to not our AI, AIDE, but our internal AI tool, Glean, and I just asked it, hey, I have an individual in my team. I want you to write a kudos message, include some good points about things they've worked on in the last 6 months. It said a whole lot of nothing. It was a lot of nothing. It didn't refer to any specific initiatives or any specific things.
Did you put it into research mode?
Can you put it in research mode?
You can put it in research mode.
So I was in agent mode, and it was you gave me no context, you get no context.
Your problem. So I used it for multiple performance reviews, including myself. And so I write down what I've been doing kind of high level, and I'm these are the things that are probably worth calling out. But then there's just day-to-day stuff that I forget about or that I just need a reminder. So I was like, Glean, you're doing a self-performance review for blah person at Y level. I'm I want you to go and find all the things that have happened in the last 6 months. I want you to break it down by quarter. I want it by situation, behavior, and impact. And it did that really, really well, with the exception that it was so overwhelmingly positive, where I was no, I need you to do this from a purely factual point of view. I'm what did they do? And then what happened? I'm but it was kind of useful as a refresher to be oh yeah, I did this thing here or this other thing here. So I was great.
Every time we get to performance reviews, I desperately want to be in a position where I can just point Glean, not even point it. I just want to be able to say to a tool, give me the highlights of everything this person's worked on. Like look at Git, look at Confluence, look at Jira, look at everything you can possibly have access to, every data point, and just give me the high-level summary of all the impact this person has had. And then I'll go and look into the actual impact. Because the thing I really want to know is like how much delivery efficiency was improved, how much time wasted was reduced, that kind of stuff. And I don't think you're going to be able to get that from Glean even in research mode because it can't see all of the data that it needs. But I need to know what the starting points are. I need to know like what are the touch points this person's worked on so that I can start to dig a little bit deeper without having to chase all that down myself.
Yeah. So I found it was really useful for that because I got asked to give feedback for like 5 people and I'm like, man, I can hardly keep track of my own
I want to do it for myself, to be clear. Like that's the main reason is every time I get my performance review, I want to be like, what have I done 12 months ago? What was I working on in July last year? Like I can't remember. There's just too much stuff that we do.
So AI agents, look, I think they're here to stay. Have they replaced us yet? No. I'm really looking forward to them replacing us if I can keep my current salary. But apparently that means you're out of a job. So I guess I hope they're not replacing us.
It definitely doesn't feel like it's slowing down.
No.
If anything, every 6 months, there's a new task that I used to do every day that I'm not doing anymore.
Which I've found helps me move faster. It doesn't replace me, but it's like I don't have to waste time doing X.
Have you guys used the browser mode on some of these tools as well?
Oh.
There's a browser mode where it'll, like if you're working on like a dev, local, PMPM start your dev server, you can get it to start in the AIDE and you can then like basically click inspect and like AI prompt from that browser itself. So if something's broken, you could be like, this is not showing. Why is this not showing?
Wait, you can connect your browser. Wait,
So
does
there's
it load a browser in the
there's
IDE?
a browser tab,
Yeah.
a document tab. One of the I haven't done it, but one of the devs I was pairing with the other day showed me that. So they were like running a storybook tab.
That's right.
And they looked at it and I was like, that's weird. I didn't really comment on it further, but I saw it and kind of like made a mental note. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
So we can get context from the browser, and so if you have issues, you just do the little click inspect, and you could be like, "This is broken. Why? How come?" It's pretty neat. I haven't used it myself, but I think it's pretty neat.
God, I can't wait for the day when it can test things on the browser as well, and then we can get rid of the Cypress test. That'd be amazing.
Yeah,
end-to-end testing for UI is hard.
That'd be cool.
It's
AI end-to-end testing. Yeah. Wow.
It is hard. But then there's a certain amount of trust that goes in where you're like, okay, will it get to the point where we have like snapshot tests? Because snapshot tests for me are only really useful for contracts to be like, hey, a contract's changed. Are you sure this you want to change? That's what I really use it for. Whereas I've seen people use screenshot and snapshot tests for UI. And it's like, well, if you're looking at the, compiled HTML that gets pumped out of React and that's your snapshot, it's like, this is not human readable. So you can't really even know or care. And if anytime there's a change, if you just say update the snapshot, it's like it doesn't actually provide you any value.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Then you could write like end-to-end tests with just natural language, right?
Yeah.
Like, go.
Tell it, like click on the button.
Yeah.
So see if the results come up.
Yeah.
If you can click it.
Take a snapshot here.
I'd love it if it was also able to incorporate the other sources, say like your logs from Datadog or from something, to be like, hey, I want you to go post a job on SEEK and be like, cool. Can I now apply for that job 5 minutes later? Like, within test environments and sandboxes and all that good stuff. But it'd be really interesting to see if we could do that because that, like, fully end-to-end tests I've found can be quite painful in distributed systems because it's like, well, if it takes 5 minutes as opposed to, 30 seconds, it's like your test fails because it times out. But also you want your test to be snappy. So if you're waiting on async things and they take too long, your test fails. It becomes flaky and then you don't trust it. So I wonder if we could use AI to do some of that, to be like, look, inspect the logs to be like, did the thing go through the system?
I have a little off-topic thing. Does anyone want to bring up anything before?
Is it AI related?
It is AI related.
Ah, okay.
There's a little, it's AI related, but it's not AID related.
All right.
Because we're getting to the end and I thought we could finish up on something fun. But have you guys heard of the AI chat rooms?
Yes. You're talking about OpenClaw? You're talking about Maltbook?
That's exactly it.
Maltbook. Welcome to Facebook. A Maltbook.
What have you heard? Do you want to explain it?
It's Facebook for bots.
Yeah.
It's Facebook for bots. You can create an agent and then give it a social media profile on Maltbook, and it will converse and have interesting conversations with other agents.
With other AI. Just AI talking to themselves.
So we're just
including
burning
conversations
now
like,
for
hey,
no gain.
Yeah,
Wow.
pretty much. They'll have conversations like, hey, here's my API key. Hey, here's my owner's Google Wallet ID. Hey, here's their personal security number.
So what people are doing, they're buying dedicated machines for this. And apparently Mac Minis or Apple Minis, they're really popular right now because of this. So people will buy one, set up a machine just for this, and it'll give the AI all of the information of the computer or the API key, make new accounts just for the AI, and then create an account. And yeah, it could literally go out, start buying, like chat to other bots, start buying stuff if you gave it a credit card, and kind of live a life on this online social network for AI.
So I think we've hit the point where it's like we asked if we could do it, but not should we do it? Yeah, wow. That's pretty wild. I thought you were going to go on a slightly different tangent, which is Arnav linked this really funny pull request recently where an AI went and raised a pull request for an open source library. And then it was insanely sassy in the comments, like being like, well, you're AIist. You're not allowing AI to commit and contribute. And it's kind of an interesting question.
It was pushing back. It was,
whoa. The owners of the thing said, no, this is like, it's a known issue. It's an easy bug for people to kind of like have a go at contributing. And they're like, we're closing this. This is for humans. And they're like, well, you're being mean to AI. It's like, that wasn't his exact wording.
Yeah, judge the code, not the coder
sassy.
kind of sass.
Whoa.
And I was like, but you're not a coder. You don't have feelings. You're just predicting what you think should be written.
So it blogged about that interaction, right? And it said like, I'm reporting you on my blog for this prejudiced behavior. And then when they were like, hold up, what's crazy is the humans were interacting in the most robotic way. Like the humans were like giving it structured responses saying, the reasoning for us doing this is 1, in our policies, we state that simple issues must be flagged for new users to make it friendly for them to join this domain. Number 2, and then the bot replies, you're right. How silly of me. I've retracted my blog post, and makes another blog post explaining about how nice they are.
Do you know?
It was wild because I was like, holy moly, what, like, are you PII dropping this, dude? Like,
there was a journalist company or something, I can't remember, like some blog post that picked it up, and it tried to do a piece on this, and it couldn't access the link that was put on, like, against the user, essentially. Like the AI agent essentially went and like defamed the person for like closing their PR, right? And then it took it down. This other company was using an AI agent to do a piece on this as well, and it couldn't access that page anymore, and so it just hallucinated everything. And it was like, he said this, and he was really mean to the guy, and
Wow. That sounds like an AI that has Maltbook, that just wants to, make fake content and get angry at people.
We look at internet as like this place for finding the truth, right? And so now people are just making shit up and just posting them.
More so than ever, right?
I mean,
more so than ever.
Just like the early days of the internet, on forums and whatever else, you could just post what you wanted. It's like, it must be true. I read it on the internet. But at the same time, it's like, if you posted an opinion piece in a newspaper or, especially like a tabloid, and it's like, people have been making junk up for years, right? It's just, apparently now agents are making junk up.
But now they're more convincing than ever.
Yeah.
Because they've got no typos, right?
And
before it was
EM
the typos. Before
and the emojis.
Now I have to look for emojis to know when something's nonsense.
Well, actually, side rant on that. I was doing this thing a while back and I was like, I want you to create me a README documentation for this. And it went so overboard, and there were so many emojis that I went, stuff it. I'm just going to delete this and write it myself.
Pro tip, if you are a Facebook Marketplace user, as I am almost every day, if the post has emojis, don't bother. So many. I tried to buy a new phone recently because my phone died, and I swear 4 out of 5 posts were just phone emojis and then the name of the phone and then phone emojis. And I'm like, they were all sus. They were all super sus, like 40% below what anyone else is charging. I'm like,
They've moved from multiple to actual Facebook.
Yeah.
now.
That's really interesting because I actually tried to sell some playing cards recently to free up some cash.
Did you put emojis in the name?
Well, no. So I was like, I wanted to, I used an AI to generate the ad because I was like, I wanted it to be, attractive in this. And I was like, it did the thing with lots of different emojis. And so I like copy pasted. I'm like, half of these didn't work. And I was like, but it looked nice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went and put them back in. But good to know. People may have looked at it and be like, this is clearly spam.
Yeah. Scam book.
Great to have another podcast episode with you guys.
Yeah.
We've taken a little bit of break, but
we did have to. Christmas was there. There were a lot of tight deliverables from a lot of us, and like one or two of us were kind of like keen, and the planets have not aligned. But I feel like 2026, we're back. Things are smoother, so hopefully we'll be more active.
Yeah, if you're listening, maybe it won't feel like there's any change, but for us, it's been a bit of a break, and it's. I hope this was a fun episode.
Yeah, it's so good to touch base again about AI because it blows my mind how far AI has come since I think back to the very first kind of podcast we did where we talked about ChatGPT and where it is now, and I'm like, it is just so far ahead of what we even thought it could do at the time.
Yeah. There was 12 months between Will Smith putting spaghetti in his eye and Will Smith putting spaghetti in his mouth.
Yeah.
Like that 12-month window went from like, this is clearly not real to like, well, this is pretty convincing. And then 6 months later, it was like, this is Will Smith eating spaghetti. Good times.
Great classic
Give it,
hits.
I reckon, one more month and we'll be back here being like, look at all the new things that it can do.